Hello, my name is Abby Plyler, and I will be talking about the wonderful Amy Carmichael of Ireland. She was a missionary to mostly India, a little bit to Japan, but I just wanted to recount what I learned from the book A Chance to Die by Elizabeth Elliot, another wonderful missionary. So here it goes. So Amy was born in 1867 in mid-December in Northern Ireland into a well-to-do Presbyterian family. Her father, David Carmichael, he was a mill owner. He owned a grain mill, and he also served as a minister, sounds like part-time, in their local Presbyterian church. And his wife was Catherine Jane Filson Carmichael. They were both pretty wonderful parents. They disciplined Amy and her 6 siblings very well. They took care of them. They were kind of well-to-do. They had the latest trends, and they really just enjoyed a fairly quiet and simple life. Amy was educated by a governess, and she spent some time in a boarding school in Yorkshire, England, until her father got ill and passed away around the age of 54 when she was around 18 years old. She had a heart for beauty. She loved painting, art, writing. She loved music. She loved teaching. And she also loved ministry. So her ministry was full of different spiritual motivations. I like to think of her as really embodying the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control. Her love was compassionate, her joy was impenetrable, her peace was wrapped in God's love, and her patience was persevering. She was very sensitive to those around her. She had a very open mind to different cultures. She was willing to sacrifice her comfort and her means and even her health and her life for the gospel. And she was willing to adopt customs that were really gruesome and difficult to obtain, and new languages. She spent a lot of time studying languages and putting her mind to discipline to learn things for the Lord. So we'll start with her ministry. In Belfast, England, she taught the mill girls there about her faith. The mill girls, they were called Shawleys back then. They were not really mixed in with the upper classes. And this was during the mid to late 1880s. She actually founded gatherings at Rosemary Street Presbyterian Church Hall. And the ministry grew to like 500 women, which was pretty incredible. It was called the Welcome Hall, and it was just that. Everybody was welcome. She funded the thing with her own ideas and imaginations. And then she eventually had to relocate to Manchester, England, and she did slum work there. So she worked with the very poor, and she lived in a very rough place, infested with roaches and rats, and she got pretty sick in that one, so her duration there was not very long. So she had to move to the Lake District of England to recover. But during that time, she was able to attend a pretty cool convention called the Keswick Convention. They had several of them. And this was where she heard Hudson Taylor speak about the China Inland Mission. And she was very motivated by his speech, and she felt a calling of God when she was there. And unfortunately, she was still pretty ill when she reached out to the China Inland Mission herself to go. So they did not accept her. But in 1893, she heard a distinct call from God telling her to go ye. Those were the literal words she heard. And she eventually interpreted that to mean Japan. So she went to Japan and ministered there for just short of a year. And she got ill. And then she came back home for a little while to recover. 15 months. And then she went to India, actually Sri Lanka, or Ceylon, India, and she spent a good amount of time there. enough to where she fell in love with the culture, and she became a missionary there long term for 55 years. And the last 20 years of that 55 years, she spent bedridden from illness because she broke her leg after falling into a hole. It was a terrible tragedy for her, but her life was spent ministering with other women in India, and they went about doing evangelism with very difficult travels. But during this time, she fell in love with the children there and ended up rescuing around 1,000 plus children who had been victims of prostitution and poverty, and she was able to share the gospel with them. So this is a little bit too long, but thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the story of Amy Carmichael.